Hello everyone. So, welcome back. Today we are going to learn about from the gathering to the growing crops. In our last videos, we saw how the people or how the hunter gatherers have begun the farming, how they started living, how they got the food, what they eat, where they live, and what were their weapons. Everything we learned in our previous video is going to be continued in our this video. Fine. Like this is a series of time period of the hunter gatherers. In the ancient history, we started from the hunter gatherers and we will be moving ahead. So now it's time to see how the hunter gatherers started to gather the food. मीन्स हंटर गैदर ने कैसे फूड गैदर करने की इंडस्ट्री में वो इन्वॉल्व हो गए. बिकॉज अभी तक हमने जो देखा था उसमें हंटर गैदर जो थे सिर्फ और सिर्फ अभी तक वो चीज़ों को मतलब गैदर करते थे. गैदर करने के लिए उनको टूल्स बनाते थे और उससे ही वो मीन्स हंटिंग पे जाते थे और वहाँ से प्रे लेके आते थे और देन दे ईट एंड देन दे स्टोर ऑल्सो बिकॉज दे हंट एंड गैदर. नाउ वी विल सी कि ये पीपल जो थे जो हंटर गैदरर्स थे हाउ दे स्टार्टेड और हाउ दे मूव्ड टू ग्रोइंग क्रॉप्स. इनको कैसे पता पड़ा कि इरीगेशन या एग्रीकल्चर करके भी कुछ होता है. हाउ दे स्टार्टेड टू ग्रो क्रॉप्स एज यू कैन सी इन दिस पिक्चर. Right, this on the one part we can see that the hunter gatherers are catching the prey, and on the counterpart we can see that some are indulged in the farming. So how this started, ये कैसे start हुआ. So in this video we are going to learn about it, so stick with us. So beginning of the farming, how the farming started. So let's begin with it. The climate of the world was changing, so were the people and the animals that the people used as a food. The man, women, children probably observed the several things. The places where edible plants were found, how the seeds broke off stalk and fell on the ground. The new plants sprouted from them. Perhaps they began looking after the plants, protecting them from the birds and the animals, and so that they could grow the seeds and would ripen in the way the people become farmer. So this was the reason, and now let me explain you. कुछ ऐसा हुआ था उस टाइम पे कि ये जो पर्सन्स थे लाइक हमने इन आवर प्रीवियस वीडियो वी लर्न दैट कि दे स्टार्टेड हंटिंग. राइट, हंटिंग के साथ में इनके पास कुछ सीड्स भी होते थे. ये जो कुछ भी खाते थे खाने के बाद दे थ्रो दोज सीड्स ऑन द नियर बाय काउंटर पार्ट. मतलब जहाँ रहते थे अगर हम भी अगर कुछ खा रहे हैं तो हम कहाँ पे उसको फेंकेंगे, हमारे पास में ही. तो ये वहीं पे जहाँ पे रहते थे वहीं पे इन सीड्स को फेंक देते थे. धीरे धीरे क्या हुआ कि उन सीड्स में से प्लांट स्टार्ट हुए निकलना, और ये वो चीज़ ऑब्जर्व कर रहे थे कि इन सीड्स में से प्लांट्स निकलना स्टार्ट हो रहे हैं. फिर जैसे जैसे वो प्लांट्स बढ़ना स्टार्ट हुए इन लोगों ने उन प्लांट्स को प्रोटेक्ट करना स्टार्ट किया. राइट, उनको प्लांट्स को प्रोटेक्ट किया फ्रॉम द बर्ड्स एंड द एनिमल्स. एंड देन वो प्लांट्स जो थे जब वो बड़े हो गए तो उनको फिर प्रॉपरली प्रोटेक्ट करके और धीरे धीरे जब उनको पता पड़ गया कि दीज आर द सीड्स, इन सीड्स को जब हम लाइन पे रखेंगे या लाइन पे फेंकेंगे तो उससे वहाँ पे थोड़े टाइम बाद वहाँ पे एक प्लांट निकल जाएगा. तो इन्होंने वो चीज़ को ऑब्जर्व किया. राइट, हम भी अगर हम भी करते हैं ना, हम जब गार्डनिंग करते हैं सो व्हेन वी फर्स्ट पुट द सीड इन द लैंड एंड देन व्हेन द प्लांट जब वहाँ से स्प्राउट होता है तो हम उस प्लांट को प्रोटेक्ट करना स्टार्ट करते हैं. और प्रोटेक्ट करने के बाद हम उसको प्रोटेक्ट करते हैं फ्रॉम द एनिमल्स, बर्ड्स एंड एवरीथिंग. राइट, कि उस प्लांट को कभी कुछ हो नहीं. राइट, तो वैसे ही इनने उन सीड्स को वहाँ पे थ्रो कर देते थे ऐसे ही. और थ्रो करने के बाद जब उनमें से प्लांट्स निकलना स्टार्ट हुए सो देन दे स्टार्टेड प्रोटेक्टिंग देम फ्रॉम द बर्ड्स, एनिमल्स एंड एवरीथिंग. राइट, एंड दिस बिकम अ प्रोसेस. धीरे धीरे ये एक प्रोसेस बन गया एंड देन दिस बिकम द पार्ट ऑफ देयर लाइफ. राइट, दे स्टार्टेड टुडे. Right, today with just by throwing the seed and then they indulge in this activity. वो इस एक्टिविटी में ही indulge हो गए और then day by day they started farming. You can see in this picture, this is the picture which was made on a cave wall. हमने हमारे previous video में देखा था कि cave paintings क्या होती है. Right, so this is the picture from the cave wall. We can see this. The picture is made of like this people are doing farming. Right, so like this only we got the evidences कि farming उस टाइम पे होती थी. like caves के ऊपर मिले हमको ये प्रोसेस जो था वो उन्होंने उस टाइम पे फार्मिंग की थी. तो उस टाइम के हमको सीड्स और ये चीज़ भी उस टाइम पे मिली. हमने जब उन सीड्स की डेट पता लगी तो वो सीड्स हंटर गैदरर के फेस की थी. आपको पता भी होगा हंटर गैदरर का, मैंने आई टोल्ड यू दैट द हंटर गैदरर फ्रॉम द स्टोन एज, the period we call it as a stone age, right? So that was the stone age, and this was the picture which that stone age, that seed, हमने stones की रेटिंग करी तो वो हंटर गैदरर के फेस की, हमने सीड्स की रेटिंग करी तो वो भी उसी फेस पे आ रहे थे, हमने पिक्चर्स जो थे इनके बारे में स्टडी किया तो दिस वाज आल्सो फ्रॉम दैट फेज ओनली. सो दिस was the reason how we got to know that these people were the farmers, right? They also know the irrigation and how they started growing the crops. Now begin with the next beginning of the herding. With farming they also started herding, right? Like the domestication, उन्होंने animals को भी साथ में रखना start कर दिया. So how this was started? The woman, man, children could also attract and then temper the animal by leaving the foods for the near the shelter. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestors of the dog. Later, the people encouraged the animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps and where they lived. These animals, such as the sheep goat, and also the pigs, lived in the shelter. The most of them ate grasses, and often the people protect these animals from attack by the others wild animals, and this how they become the herders. So this was also a small simple procedure, कोई रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है इनको समझने के लिए. ऐसा हुआ था कि जब ये अगर जब हम घर पे खाना खाते हैं, खाना खाने के बाद बहुत सी बार ऐसा होता है कि कुछ खाना बच जाता है, राइट? नॉर्मल प्रोसेस है. हम उस खाने को क्या करते हैं, हम जाके बाहर, घर के बाहर, या फिर कोई एनिमल अगर हमारी कॉलोनी में या गली में होता है, लाइक काउ डॉग या कुछ भी होता है, तो हम देन वी सर्व दैट फूड टू दैट एनिमल, राइट? सो अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर कल्चर दिस इज अ गुड थिंग, राइट? कि हम किसी एनिमल को, लाइक जो भी कोई भी अगर लाइक whomsoever is hungry, we are serving that food to them, right? So that this same, in the same manner only, this hunter gatherer, when they eat the food and they throw the waste to the nearby places, right, where they live, वहीं पे वो पास में उन फूड को थ्रो कर देते थे. then the animals nearby to the hunter gatherers come over there and eat those foods. वो उस foods को खाते थे. then this also become a process. ये धीरे धीरे वो फूड फेंकते थे, animals come and eat that food, then they threw the food, then the animal come and eat that food. So then this also become a process, right? So afterwards what happened, that when the other wild animals come to those places, this hunter gatherer also protect them from the, not to kill those animals, they also protect them. And then this process, right, of throwing food to eating food and protecting those animals, this can be anything like the sheep, goat, cattle, pig, dog, anything. Though then this process become the herding. And remember one thing, the first animal to be tempted was the wild ancestors of the dog. Like today also we love to domesticate the dog. हम dogs को हमारे घर में रखते हैं. We used to keep the dogs with us, right, to protect us from the anything uncertain. But this process was not of today. This would begin in the hunter-gatherer phase. At that time, those people used to keep the dogs, but they used to keep the wild dogs, right? And today we used to keep the dogs which are friendly to our family. So this was the process, like you can see over here. Fine, the ancestors of the wild dog. So this was the thing, how they began farming, how they began the herding. Then a complex term arises over here, domestication. We used to say this animal is a domestic animal, this animal is a wild animal, right? Where this term evolved, domestic, right? All are wild animals, but how we got to know which are the domestic and which are not the domestic? So let's learn about it. Domestication is the name given to the process in which the people grow plants and look after the animal. Very often, the plants and the animals that are tended by the people become different from the wild people and the animals, wild plants and the animals. This is because the plant people selected the plants and the animals for the domestication. How this started? This also started in a simple manner. There is no rocket science behind it, right, guys? You have to just understand if something is friendly to us, right? If some animal or some plant is friendly to us or familiar to us, right? अगर कोई चीज़ जो है वो हमको कोई harm नहीं पहुंचा रही है, राइट. अगर कोई चीज़ हमको हार्म पहुंचा रही है तो दैट इज़ अ वाइल्ड थिंग. एंड इफ द समथिंग इज फ्रेंडली टू अस, फेमिलियर टू अस, कोई अगर ऐसी एनिमल है या ऐसा प्लांट है जो हमको बिल्कुल हार्मफुल नहीं, हमारे लिए बिल्कुल हार्मफुल नहीं है, सो दैट प्लांट और दैट एनिमल will be considered as a domestic. And right, and this process of understanding those things of which are the wild or which are the domestic means इस process को, ये चीज़ को समझना है कि कौन से wild है और कौन से domestic है. This process is known as domestication. Right, you can see this definition over here. The domestication is a process where we understand that which plants and which animals are friendly to us and which animals and which plants are wild to us. So those who are friendly to us, or those plants and animals which are friendly to us, will be known as the domestic plants and animals. Among the animals among the animals, those that are relatively gentle are selected for breeding, and as a result gradually the domesticated animals and the animals become different from the wild animals and the plants. For example, the teeth and the horns of the wild animals are usually much larger than the domestic animals. So how they understand? They again got the second logic. The first one was the which are friendly to us. The second one was the when those animals which are friendly to us, they try to keep those animals with them, right? They try to keep those animals with them, they try to protect those animals with them, right, for them. And then they again give a different definition. The definition was the animals which have a long teeth and horns, right, जिनके सिंग होते हैं और जिनके teeth लंबे होते हैं, those will be considered as the wild animal. Usually we see this, like the animals, usually we also observe right now that the animals with the long teeth, right, and the horns are dangerous to us, right. So this was also an example framed by those animals that this can be considered as the domestic and this can be considered as an wild animals. So some of the early people to be domesticated were the wheat and the barley. Some of the earliest plants to be domesticated were the wheat and the barley. If you remember one thing, that in our previous video I told you, earliest crop to be found, सबसे पुराना crop जो हमें आज मिला है, that is not wheat, that is not rice, it is barley. हमें सबसे पुराना जो crop मिला है, that is barley, right. And for the hunter gatherers, the earliest domesticated plants were the wheat and the barley. सबसे ज़्यादा ये wheat और barley को ही domesticate करते थे. But then also remember one thing, the earliest plant we found was, the earliest seed we found was the barley. सबसे पुराना जो हमें seed मिला है. The earliest domesticated animals include the sheep and the goat. The earliest domesticated, जिन animals को हम domesticate करते थे सबसे ज़्यादा, वो कौन थे? Those were the sheep and the goats, right? Today also we see, usually the people used to keep the sheep and the goats for the domestication. But this was not the concept of the today. ये सिर्फ आज की बात नहीं है, ये चीज़ हमने सालों पहले से चली आ रही है और हम आज उन्हीं को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, राइट. हम अपने आप को मॉडर्न बोलते हैं, बट मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रिंसिपल्स वी यूज टू फॉलो टुडे वर टेकन फ्रॉम द पास्ट. So this is the small lesson of the hunter gatherers, how the hunter gatherers started growing the plants, how they become the farmers, how the hunter gatherers started keeping the animals, and how they become the herders, and what is the process of domestication, how this domestic term evolved, and how we classified the animals between the domestic animals and the wild animals. This was a short part of this lesson from the gathering foods from the hunting to the gathering. The further lessons will be proceeded soon. Thank you for being with us. Stay with us. Thank you.